Let's take a look at the latest article on GRIN for Brave New Coin. So some charts here comparing all the metrics between all the privacy able coins, the abled privacy coins. Now if we look at Monero and GRIN, this is default privacy. If we look at Dash, Zeek, DCR, and Pivx, this is optional privacy. The privacy purists will tell you that optional privacy isn't privacy at all. I do agree with that, because if you try to use any of the optional privacy features from an exchange, you can't, they're disabled, whereas XMR by default, GRIN by default is private, confidential. Those words have specific meanings as far as obscuring transaction values or anonymizing details in the transaction. A drawback to this is that GRIN's going to have a hard time getting listed because legally it's going to get a lot of blowback from law enforcement from a criminal perspective. Again, if you're a privacy purist, you're focused on, I'm not a criminal, I'm just using this, I want to be anonymous, whatever. So if we look at the metrics here, automatically, I can't see the total daily transaction volume for GRIN or Monero, and I cannot see the active addresses for GRIN or Monero. So that tells me right off the bat that these are actually privacy coins. Again, these values are just obscured by nature on the chain, it's default. Looking at everything else, Dash pretty much leads volume, daily fees, transactions per day, daily active addresses. This is probably because Dash uses, at least in part, because of the coin mixing services they have on that chain. So it's hard to compare these one-to-one directly, just because you can't see everything on all of the privacy coins here. Now, if we look at the network difficulty for GRIN, which is the line here, and the inflation for GRIN, which is the fill, inflation is currently at 100% per year, which is insanely high. It's by design. It's going to continue to come down. They wanted a fair distribution. They wanted proof of work. They didn't want to do an ICO. They didn't want to do a pre-mine. So this encourages as many people as they can to obtain some early on. It's GPU mineable. Difficulty has continued to decline. So this to me says there aren't any ASICs that are secretly mining. There were a couple companies that were going to introduce ASICs into the market. And at the end of the day, those companies determined there wasn't enough interest in the ASICs at the time. So this is good for GRIN in the short term. I think in the long term, there will be ASICs for this coin inevitably. There always are for everything. It's just a matter of interest in the market. And another thing, talking about the inflation here, you can't look at these metrics and think to yourself, it's a buy and hold, it's going to store value over long term. Probably not the case. If you're getting in now, from an investing perspective or an interest perspective, it's likely because you're aligned with the privacy perspective, you're aligned with dev community, with GRIN. They're closely related to the Mimblewimble people and the Bitcoin people and the Litecoin people. And years from now, GRIN will probably exist because it has a very strong dev community. Who knows what's going to happen to the price, but at the very least, it's not going to disappear on you. Looking at transactions per day, which is this line here, and the fill is the average fees per transaction. So you can see fees have come down and stayed down, which is good. That's what you want to see. Transactions have essentially held near around 2,500 per day. And these random spikes may or may not be related to mining pool distributions and or just random activity. There's just such little activity on the chain that any uptick in any sort of activity is going to just blow out these daily transaction numbers. Looking at the price chart itself on the TA, there isn't much history. There's about a year or just a little less than a year of price history. Now, there's two things that immediately stick out to me is this Adam and Eve. Previously, this almost looks painted on purpose. Absolutely perfect textbook Adam Eve, where you get a V and a U. This is a reversal sign. In this case, a bullish reversal sign. Yeah, it's hindsight. Okay, it had a nice bullish momentum push after completion of the pattern. So similarly, that's what I'm looking for now in this current price structure. Not as perfect of an Adam Eve, but definitely a V, definitely a U. This is what you want to see, a multi-month. This is like going on 8 months, 6 to 8 months at least at this point. And inflation is going to play a part in GRIN coming out of the bear market it's in. It's going to play less of a role once it starts moving, if it does start moving past 20,000 sats, past the 200 EMA, past all of this volume resistance. All this is possible, but until it happens, it's hard to take a position thinking like, again, this isn't like a buy and hold sort of thing just because of the inflation. RSI looks fine. I don't see any divergence here in near term or anything like that. Looking at the cloud, again, it's flirting with bullishness in that it's got a high possibility here if the lows hold that cloud is going to flip bullish on the Kumo twist here. The TK lines are going to flip bullish. Price is going to move above cloud, and lagging span is going to move above everything. This may take another month, but it's certainly something to put on the alert list. You know, set an alert for like 18,000 sats or 15,000 sats, whatever it is, so that you're ready, you know what to do. And when this Adam and Eve resolves, you can say, okay, it's above 20,000. It's go time here. Another thing to mention is a lot of times with Kumo breakouts, you do see chart patterns that align with the bullish or bearish confluence. In this case, it's a bullish confluence, bullish reversal. This could be an ascending triangle. This could be an inverted head and shoulders. Nonetheless, having the pattern with the breakout makes the breakout much more bullish when it does occur.